The television networks would broadcast these sessions live. The newspapers would report on them and Trump's other coronavirus-related pronouncements as though they were the stuff of an intelligible presidency, with positions, principles, and a strategy. As a result, even as hospitals across the country buckled, people died, and the economy tanked, more than half of all Americans claim to approve of Trump's response to the pandemic. Some people compared the Trumpian response to COVID-19 to the Soviet government's response to the catastrophic accident at the Chernobyl power plant in 1986. For once, such a comparison was not far-fetched. The people most at risk were denied necessary, potentially life-saving information, and this was the government's failure. There was rumor and fear on the one hand, and dangerous oblivion on the other. And, of course, there was unconscionable, preventable tragedy. To be sure, Americans in 2020 had vastly more access to information than did Soviet citizens in 1986. But the Trump administration shared two key features with the Soviet government: utter disregard for human life and a monomaniacal focus on pleasing the leader to make him appear unerring and all-powerful. These are the features of autocratic leadership. In the 3 years of his presidency, even before the coronavirus pandemic, Trump had come closer to achieving autocratic rule than most people would have thought possible. This is a book about that transformation, and about the hope we may yet have for emerging from Trumpism. Part 1. An Autocratic Attempt. Chapter 1. What do we call it? It could have been any week of the Trump presidency. A week when he was contradicting the government's experts on the COVID-19 pandemic, or a week when he was railing against Supreme Court justices, or a week when he humiliated his own cabinet members in public. Take 1 week in October 2019, a month into the impeachment inquiry in Congress, and just over 1,000 days into the presidency. The acting ambassador to Ukraine, William B. Taylor Jr., testified about waging a losing battle against Trump and his people to pursue a foreign policy agenda consistent with government policy and practice. House Republicans stormed a closed impeachment inquiry hearing in a bizarre direct action of Congress members against congressional practice. Trump's personal attorney, William Consovoy, argued in court that his client was immune from any prosecution, including, hypothetically, for murdering someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue, as long as he was president. And on Friday morning, the New York Times website had 2 headlines stacked on the left side of the home page. The top one reported that the Justice Department had launched a criminal probe into its own investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 election. The headline directly below announced that the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, had been found in contempt of court for continuing, in direct contravention of judicial decisions, to collect student loan payments from former students of defunct for-profit colleges. The government seemed to be at war with itself on every front. Trumpian news has a way of being shocking without being surprising. Every one of the events of that week was, in itself, staggering, an assault on the senses and the mental faculties. Together, they were just more of the same. Trump had beaten the government, the media, and the very concept of politics into a state beyond recognition, in part by habit, and in part out of a sense of necessity. We continue to report the news and consume the news. This presidency produced more headlines per unit of time than any other. But at the end of each of his 1,000 days of presidency, we seemed hardly closer to understanding what was happening to us. The difficulty with absorbing the news lies in part in the words we use, which have a way of rendering the outrageous ordinary. The Secretary of Education was held in contempt, and this astounding event was narrated in normalizing newspaper prose. Probably the strongest description called it an exceedingly rare judicial rebuke of a cabinet secretary. This could not begin to describe the drama of a cabinet member remaining unrepentant for her agency's seizure of assets from